This is a presentation of the Sports Source Digital Network. Presented by Hearthside Bank.
Who were the 6 biggest game-changing coaches in Tennessee sports history? We'll tell you next.
Go.
Welcome in to Give Him 6, latest episode here on the Sports Source Digital Network. We appreciate you being with us. I'm John Pennington, joined by, as always, John Wilkerson, who you can hear on 99.1 The Sports Animal. You can also hear him calling fall baseball games. You're going to be doing fall network stuff for the spring game, I'm guessing, as well?
Actually, baseball's out of town that weekend, so that'd be a no.
That'd be a no.
Yeah.
Okay, well, just shut her down. All right, very good. And right over here, Bob Hodge, who, of course, folks can see you on the Sports Source. They can see you on this channel for the Sports Source Wild, where you and Joe Juster are doing your outdoor show. So.
Yep, and people can hear me just out in my yard.
Well, they can hear both of us on 99.1 The Sports Animal on Mondays with Will and Tyler. All right, well, what we're doing today is the 6 biggest game-changing coaches. Like, if you had to get, I don't want to do the Mount Rushmore. Everybody says Mount Rushmore, and there is only 4 Mount Rushmore. So we're doing 6. Give him 6. It's a countdown show, but it's Tennessee, so we don't count from 5 or 10. We count from 6. But we're going to look at these coaches who made a huge difference in the program moving forward. So you could look at it and say, yep, it was different after this guy or gal. That's the idea. Now, none of us have come in here with a list of our own we may have it in our head, but we don't know where the other guys are going to go. So we're going to start, we're going to try and start with the lower names, I guess, then work our way up, and I'm probably going to be the same couple of names at the top is my guess. But we'll get into that. If you like this kind of programming, and we pray that you do, click the thumbs up. That does a huge amount of help for us, which we appreciate. It also helps other Tennessee fans who might not be in the area find programs like this so they can connect back to home. Also, subscribe to our channel. We appreciate that as well. All right, so I will write things down on this here board starting at number 6, but I will let you guys start. Is there a name that we want to discuss? And what we'll do is I will actually write them down here. That way we can slide them a little more easily. Okay. But is there a name we want to start that you think probably won't be at the top of the list? I mean, we may all turn around and say, oh, that's my number 1. But is there a name that you think should be on here but maybe not toward the top?
Wow.
Game changer.
It's always easier to work the other way.
Yeah.
So I will start at the bottom.
All right.
Yeah.
And I am going to go with, and I'm sitting here, I'm building up. It's very dramatic.
Yeah, the tension
I'm going to go with
palpable.
Doug Dickey at the bottom. And here is my reason. Once you got through the General Neyland era, Tennessee football was kind of, I mean, it wasn't horrible, it wasn't bad.
Dropped
I mean,
off.
you had the Johnny Majors era, and
As a player, yeah.
runner-up in the Heisman Trophy, and you had some decent seasons in there. But from the time that Robert Neyland stepped down until Dickey, you weren't quote-unquote Tennessee. You were basically what a lot of teams are. You're a decent team, but nobody's scared of you. And so I think he is the one who put the foundation down that kind of brought Tennessee back from there after the. So I would put him at the bottom of our top list.
Yeah, it kind of declined under Bowden Wyatt.
Yes.
And then I guess it was Jim McDonald who was the 1-year, 2-year coach who handed it off to Doug Dickey. John, I'll let you go because I can make a case for Dickey.
Yeah. In fact, I have Doug higher.
Okay.
In fact, Doug Dickey is my number 3.
Wow, okay.
And that's just simply for the fact that when you take a look, granted it was the success on the field that you're pointing to, and you're exactly right. I mean, he took over a program, he changed the offense. And
you got out of
brought it into the 20th century.
Yeah, you finally had a quarterback.
Yep.
He won SEC championships, has one of Tennessee's claimed 6 national championships in football. And then also, I think he deserves top 3 because you are talking Tennessee football and you're talking the guy who gave you your flavor that fans celebrate to this day. Yeah, whether it's running through the tee or it's the power tee on the helmet, the checkerboard end zone, there is so much that still is a part of Tennessee football game days, which we know is the big sport in terms of revenue and all of that. That's why I think Doug Dickey's my 3, because he had the success on the field and he also transformed the fan experience for what is still held today.
To me, that's where I was going to go. The fact that it's those traditions that he created, that coaches change. They've changed over the years. The power T's been tweaked a little, but that T has been on the helmet ever since Doug Dickey put it there. They've run through the T. They've changed the side that you run through the T on, but they still do it. And the checkerboards went away for a while, but they've been back for the last 30-plus years. I think that Dickey goes on the list because of he transformed not only the program on the field, but as you say, he transformed the program off the field to where you have traditions that, you pass that down, father to son, mother to daughter. What do the checkerboards mean? Well, that started in 1963, which is actually
they had a lot of white and orange paint.
Yeah, that's right.
Put it.
Yeah, and in another couple of years, that'll actually be my voice.
Now I feel bad.
No, don't.
Why?
Because you've convinced me. I had him too low on the list.
Well, we'll figure it
because
out.
I was just looking at wins and losses, and if you go back and you look at Tennessee. Neyland comes in the 20s, and you have just this fantastic run, and then you get bumpy after he left. And so I was just looking at it from the wins and losses and didn't take into consideration, the checkerboard end zones, the T on the helmet, all of these things that live on to this day. And so in just a little bit of argument, you have swayed me that he should go higher. Who thought about putting Doug Dickey at number 6?
I also think that you have a really successful tenure as Tennessee's director of athletics. I mean, his exit obviously was villainous.
Yeah, I started to say there will be people of a certain age who still don't like us praising him.
Correct.
They never forgave him.
Oh, that's right.
And I don't think the AD stuff factors into this list, but he's of my lifetime, and the current guy, Danny White's, he's on a rocket ship. He's heading up. But in my lifetime, he's the best athletic director Tennessee had. So
Agreed.
I agree with you that he gave his all for Tennessee, except when he was giving it for Florida.
That's right.
And if my mother was here,
Never
Doug
forget
Dickey was persona non grata. I remember watching that Gator Bowl game on television, and that was just the entire game. She was livid that he was playing against the team and that he wanted Florida to win that football game the entire time. So if she was here, she would be downvoting. He wouldn't even be on the list, period.
That's right.
Our old friend,
and she would be swatting you for saying he was 6.
our old buddy Bobby Scott always talks about that was one of his favorite all-time games when finally got a chance at Doug Dickey after he'd switched sides there and they whipped his fanny.
Yeah.
That's Bobby Scott for you.
I have the 45 of the song,
really?
Tricky Dicky, the song that came from that.
Wow. So you still have that?
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool. Have you got that digitized somewhere? Have you saved it some way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure enough.
Because I want a copy of it. All right. So we've got Doug Dickey somewhere on the list. We'll place them longer. We'll place them later, I should say. All right. I'll give you one. I'll put him at the. I don't think you can have. No offense. I don't think we can do 2 from this sport. The size of the sport also has to matter because my guess is football is going to be fully loaded here. But I'll go baseball. And Bob, we were talking about this yesterday. You had a guy who took you to 3 World Series in Rod Delmonico. But I don't think it ever connected the way it's rolling and connecting with Tony Vitello in terms of a consistency. And also, you're adding on to the state. Now, they did that as well in the early 90s, but the way you're building onto it, the way the fans are kind of embracing it at this point, and we just launched a new hardball show on Sports Source Digital Network. Check that out with 3 former Vols doing that. There's not even a host. It's the 3 former Vols. It's just listening in to them talk baseball. The fact that baseball is rocketing the way it is right now, I got to put Tony Vitello on there as one of the, it's a program-changing move. So to me, he's the definition of this list. I would put him toward the bottom because his tenure is still kind of early. We don't know what the end game's going to be yet, and it's not football or basketball, but it's definitely getting bigger and bigger. I got Vitello on my list. I would put him towards 6, maybe 5, but I'll let you guys debate that, argue, tell me to go the other way, whatever you think.
You want me to go next?
I'll go in. I've got him 6.
Okay.
And you're exactly right. Simply for the fact that Rod Delmonico won 699 games, 3 trips to the College World Series, won 2 SEC championships in 94 and 95. Tony Vitello has won a couple of SEC championships, not only regular season, but also tournament championships. First ever time that you beat the field in Hoover, and you did that twice in a 3-year span. Wins the first national championship in the history of the program. And oh, by the way, as the Southeastern Conference handles its qualifications itself, they're the ones that set the standard based on having coached 5 or more years and with a certain number of games coached. He is now number 1 all time in the history of the conference in winning percentage.
Wow.
So that's more than Skip Bertman. That's who he was tied with by percentage points. They got it wrong, by the way, because they give Skip a little bit more than he should have because they didn't do the ties. But anyhow, Tony Vitello, and you're right, it's fair to say we don't know where this ends.
Right.
But with everything that he's done, and you can say that Tennessee right now has the best coach in its sport in the nation. And so I think that he is very deserving of being in the top 6, and I've got him at 6.
As of March 2025, if someone's watching this in 2030 saying, wow, he murdered John Wilkerson. This was, if this is playing in the downfall of Tony Vitello thing, chasing him in a white Bronco, they'll know when we said this.
Sounds like a Netflix show, The Downfall of Tony Vitello.
But yeah, we've got him on there. Would you have him on your list?
Well, here's where we're going to have a little discussion that I'm sure I'm probably going to lose. But I would have Rod Delmonico on there first. And here's my reasoning. And you got to kind of take it from where I was at the time. I was working at the Knoxville News Sentinel back in the early 90s, and Tennessee baseball was a big, fat 0. It was nothing. The Sentinel oftentimes didn't even send somebody over to the stadium to cover the ball game. It was like a high school football game. Hey, when you get done, call it in. And then if you turn to page 3 of sports, here's a little Tennessee baseball beats whomever, loses to whomever. And so it was nothing. To me, Rod Delmonico set the table for what you have now. And the reason is because of the 3 trips to the College World Series and the fact that it made Tennessee baseball, after Delmonico was gone, I don't know, I can't in my mind come up with the exact number, I'm sure you can. How many coaches between Delmonico and Vitello? 3?
2.
Raleigh and
okay,
Serrano.
only 2. But you had expectations. And so that's the reason you didn't settle in on somebody and they hung around and they lost for 4 or 5 years, because we've got expectations here now that from probably sometime in the 50s, 60s, whenever it was, Tennessee baseball carried no expectations with it. It was literally no different now, and I'm not insulting any athletes at UT. It was indoor track. You know, how many times have people getting excited about indoor track?
For the record, that's Bob insulting athletes at Tennessee.
So I look at Delmonico as a more important figure because I think he never reached the heights, but he made baseball something that more people cared about.
I think it's fair, but you lose.
I think it's a good argument.
Yeah,
and
it is.
You're right. Again, the wins speak for themselves. One win shy is 700. And it was nothing. You were Lower Hudson Field before you were Lindsey Nelson Stadium. Todd Helton, now in Cooperstown, was there. His coach was Rod Delmonico. I think number 8 should be retired. I've got Rod 7th on my list, and the difference being the national championship.
Yeah, I think Rod doesn't get the credit he deserves. Rod was never, and this played a role in the change. He was not the rah-rah cheerleader that Tony Vitello can be. I mean, people just love this guy. Whereas Rod was more, I coached the game. and I know that frustrated athletic director at the time, Mike Hamilton, because he wanted somebody to go out and the program needed promotion. He wanted a pearl. And Vitello's closer to that. So I think that's another way that it has changed a little. Now, I'm not to me, just coach the games. I don't know that you need that. I don't need guys riding on unicycles. I know that people here like that. The Topo the Dancing Bear comes out.
Yep.
Cool, we love that. I don't know that I judge that as part of it, but the athletic director did at the time. And I think also connection with fans you can see it. You saw more of a connection for Vitello than you did for Rod at the time. But he does deserve his name to be mentioned with respect because the program before him was, as you say.
Well, see, and I think the other stuff that comes with you're talking about, the dancing bears and unicycle, when you got a good coach, that's a bonus that he's a good coach, and you also get this other part of it. I have been at 2 outdoor functions, and Tony Vitello was a guest to come in and just speak for a few moments, and the places went absolutely nuts. Okay, so here you are at a place where you've got hunters and fishermen, and the baseball coach from Tennessee comes in, and quite honestly, I don't know, and this was before the national championship, I don't know if you'd have had Josh Heupel came in if the reception would have been any bigger, because that's where his status is as far as the off the field stuff.
I agree with you. He's a rock star. He's the closest thing you've got to a rock star around here. It doesn't help him that he's got, what is it Trump always says? He's out of central casting. Looks like he's out of central casting. I mean, good-looking guy, so the ladies like him. He's got an upbeat personality. And all that factors into it. I mean, I think that's part of whereas Heupel's just kind of a quiet. He's not going to be in your face. I mean, Vitello's got some fire to him. So I think that works in his favor as well. All right. In terms of connecting with fans. So have we
actually gotten anybody on the list yet?
I think Dickey and Vitello are both on the list.
Okay, they're on the list. They just haven't.
Well, we'll rank them once we come up with it. Because I was going to write it on here, but if I'm writing with a pen, I can't erase and move and slide. So usually I cut out names.
Yeah.
I just didn't do that this time. So it was lazy. All right. John, you haven't thrown one out here, so I'll let you throw out the next one. And we can go anywhere you want. We're still trying to look at the bottom-esque of the list. Bottom-ish.
Yeah, I would put Rick Barnes on the list of 10, but I wouldn't have him in the top 6.
Wow. Okay, we'll have a fight over this one. This is good. Go ahead.
Well, and again, what he's done in 10 years is remarkable because he is now the second winningest coach in the history of the program. He's done things that, not the same coach has done all of. So he gets, to me, so much credit. But I have him one step below another coach when it comes to the history of Tennessee basketball, Volunteers basketball, and that would be Ray Mears. So I just think that Coach Barnes, again, you could not have had a better fit for where the program was. We've talked about it on previous shows where there was turmoil. There were fans that were saying, no, we're on this camp or on this side of the fence, and the other group of fans on the other side of the fence. I think what he has shown that Tennessee's capable of, and that is sustained success, is remarkable. But I would just have him on the outside looking in at my list of 6.
It's the consistency, again, for me, that would have Barnes higher, but you would put Mears on there.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, it's hard to argue because
I need a bigger list.
Well, here's the thing. Well, it's the tough thing about doing 6 every time we do this. It's tough. I mean, you should have seen Marlon struggling to whittle down the outrageous moments for Kiffin and Dooley to only 6. The thing about Mears, he did do the things we talked about with Delmonico. He breathed life into a basketball program. He had people here caring. I always count off, and it's not fair. It's not fair because the tournament was different then. He didn't get the benefit of going in a round of 64 and playing Wofford or University of Pacific at wherever. I think that.
But they also lost to VMI, so
it
was a different time and a different place because those programs could have their team that is just exactly right in lockstep with the others.
Yeah, but he didn't get the benefit of having now if you get a first round, you're probably getting an automatic win. Most teams do if you get a good seat. He didn't get the benefit of that. It was just the conference champion. Unfortunately, he was in the same league when Adolph Rupp was the greatest coach in the world. Also, there are a lot of.
And that's a name you don't hear very much anymore.
Adolph Rupp?
No, to Adolph.
Adolph. Yeah, that name's got to go on.
Kid that.
Yeah. But you look at what Mears did. I think that I also probably count off because of, and this probably isn't fair either. This is just me. A lot of stories about how they got their players over there. Which, I know right now, they all do it. Okay. I can feel the lettuce flying at TVs. they did. There were some shady, wild times over there at that period when you just talk to people who were around at that time. At the same time, I'm not going to argue that Ray Mears shouldn't be on the list. I don't know how you rank them. As a matter of fact, let's just do this right now. We may go back and put to it. Let's just talk basketball coaches, period, because you can make a case for Bruce Pearl too.
Yes.
Because he built it. Okay, you would go. Which of these three?
I'm going to make a case for Bruce Pearl.
Okay, go ahead.
And my case is this, and it's similar but dissimilar to my case for Rod Delmonico, is when Bruce Pearl got here, expectations weren't high. You had expectations, you weren't meeting those expectations. So he got here, the fact that they immediately hit, the fact that once again you have this big personality, the fact that you went to number one for the first time in the history of your program while Bruce Pearl was here, I think once again, and I look at this list of people who set the table to get to where you are.
Right. Again, it's just a reminder: 6 biggest game-changing coaches.
And so Bruce Pearl, I think, elevated Tennessee basketball to where the NCAA tournament isn't something that we hope to do. No, it's something we do. Now we're worried about where do we fall into the bracket, and you had the farce that was the Donnie Tyndall hire. But Conzo Martin, he got here. He wasn't a terrible coach. We can talk about all the reasons that he wasn't particularly liked, but it wasn't like he came here and you're struggling to win 6 games.
Right, you were on the bubble 2 years.
6 games in the SEC now get you in the NCAA tournament, so that's a bad example. But it was the expectations had risen to the point where that's good and good enough. We've got to be better than that. So that's the reason Bruce Pearl would be on my list.
Would he be higher? Okay, let's just see how we can battle this out. Because of those 3, you've got Mears 1. Mm-hmm. Of those 3, Barnes, Mears, Pearl.
I would have to go Mears for one reason.
Okay.
Before Mears showed up at Tennessee, a lot of times the basketball coaches in the SEC was an assistant football coach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So to me, Mears was sort of the guy who transitioned you from okay, the SEC is completely about football and nothing else really matters. He got you into that level of the Adolph Rupp in Kentucky that now basketball can be a thing. So that's the reason I would have Ray Mears on my list.
Okay, and I think Barnes has you at a place, like Vitello, it's not over yet.
Right.
But he has you at a place when he leaves. Now, Danny White may still go and get some up-and-comer. That's his MO, it seems. But I do think this program is at a better place than it's ever been in terms of national eyeballs on it, draw. And Mears,
I don't disagree.
Mears didn't have a 25,000-seat arena or 20,000-seat arena that was jacked out every night.
But he was the guy that led to you having a 20,000.
Well, actually, that was DeVoe. Don was the one that pushed that thing. But, yeah, I mean, if Mears isn't there, DeVoe doesn't build on it. But to me, Barnes has it in a place where national guys would look at it and say, that's one of the top jobs in the country. I don't think they would have even said that after Pearl because he wasn't long enough. It wasn't sustained.
Agreed.
Maybe that's Barnes' benefit that he's the second guy to do it. And he's done it consistently. He's also done something that Pearl didn't do in that you were consistently ranking way up high in recruits. Your name is always kicked around. Also, and I know folks don't care, but if you're an athletic director, you care. He runs a clean program, man. You have not heard, think Pearl. There were some cloudy days, and I mentioned the Mears stuff. We've all heard stories. In terms of what Barnes has done, how many guys go through that don't finish up with you really liking them? They're good guys. I think the culture counts for something. I want a team that I can pull for, a team that I can like. So to me, he's way up there. But if we got two guys saying Mears should be on there above Barnes, I'm not going to argue that. I know what he meant. It's the unicycles. I know that it's the
Big Orange Country.
Big Orange Country was his. That's right. Yeah, I hear he was proud of that. But you had the orange and white stripes.
Even in the great beyond.
Yeah, the orange and white stripes that they've gone back to on the pants. The rip-off of Indiana, but still. Right. Sweet Georgia Brown, didn't they play that? Yeah, the whole 9 yards. So I think that Mears should be on the list, no question. So he's on there. We'll leave Barnes off, but close. We'll see who else gets in this list, and maybe he winds up at the bottom of it, maybe not. Before we get further in the list, I do want to say a word of thanks to Hearthside Bank. They bring you this show, Give Him Six, and as a matter of fact, they bring you everything we do here on the Sports Source Digital Network. They are behind us 100%, and the beautiful thing about them, I grew up for a little bit. East Tennessee's always been home, but for a while I lived in Middlesboro, Kentucky. And they've got a branch there in Middlesboro, Kentucky, all up through southeastern Kentucky, all the way down to Farragut. It's basically my life on one strip. So Hearthside Bank, they're good people. And it is personal banking. Not just personal banking, not business banking. They do that, but I mean personal. They take an interest in your financial plan. They help you get there. Hearthside Bank, I believe in them. Always within reach. You should too. All right, let's continue our list here. So
Saturday, I'm actually driving the Pennington Trail.
That's it. It's the Pennington Trail, yeah. It's like he's no longer allowed here. That's why they call it there.
It's the Pennington Frisbee Golf Trail.
All right, so we did give ourselves some names here. Was there anybody, we're not going to run the name, was there anybody here that we didn't, was there a name that you guys had that isn't on here?
There's some outstanding coaches that both the Vols and Lady Vols have had.
Yeah.
But I just think when you talk about, because I think you have to factor in national and even international attention, different things like that.
Yeah.
So there are coaches that I think are just wonderful.
Yeah.
In fact, I think Matt Kretich and what he's doing with Vols and Lady Vols swimming and diving right now is truly remarkable. But I just think when you're talking about the 10 that you would whittle down to 6, they are people that you would celebrate their tenure and then say,
Ray Buzzard came to my mind as a great UT coach. Led them to a national championship. But
great track coaches and great,
yes, but I don't think in this kind of a conversation, once again, hoping that if people are going to throw lettuce, that's not what this talk is about.
No, I mean everybody knows what the attendance is, and everybody knows what the attendance is for all these sports.
Yeah.
Football's always going to be king because none of these other sports are going to have 100,000 people show up. So that's no knock, that's just a reality. And you can also go by, let's look at the budget. Which ones bring the most money in? Yes. That's it. So we're kind of going with, there are 5 major sports at Tennessee. 2, football and men's basketball are the revenue sports. Baseball, thanks to what Rod Delmonico and especially Tony Vitello have done, that's getting up there. Lady Vols basketball, due to somebody we'll probably have on the list, that's going to be on there. And then due to another, say, couple, another sport, softball, may be on the list. So those are the 5 areas we're kind of looking at. We'll see if I don't know that some of those people will be on there, but that's kind of where we're looking at. So not track, not rowing, nothing like that. So no offense to them. Mm-hmm. All right, who wants to go next? Who wants to nominate somebody? Because we're getting toward. I mean, is there anybody that's not in a sport we've mentioned so far? Do the weeklies belong on the top 6? I think they've done a great job, but I wouldn't have top 6.
Yeah, and they created a national power / program
that was
where there
really
wasn't
off
one.
the map. That's right. Yeah.
So, but I would say no, and that's just again in comparison to those that I have in my 6. I mean, the winning speaks for itself. It's just that again, I would not have them in the best of the best.
I wouldn't either. I mean, like great coaches, built a fantastic program, but the program isn't where these other programs are.
And that's also still
no fault of theirs.
To be determined.
That's right. If they win a national, if Karen Weekly wins a national championship, okay. And then do we just take old Ralph and say, you're out?
Yeah.
All right. Then, so we've covered baseball coaches. We've covered basketball coaches. That leaves us to football and Lady Vols. Okay. I think I'm going to go ahead and just throw the name out here and we'll debate it later, but Pat Summitt's going to be probably 1 or 2.
Going to be talked about.
Mm-hmm. Pat Summitt on the list. All right. So then let's look. That gives, do we all agree that Summit, Dickey, Vitello, Mears, those 4 are definitely on our list? Because that would mean there's not much room for other football coaches. Or do we want to, let's just talk football next. Let's talk football and whittle it down.
Okay.
We'll whittle it down to a couple, all right, and see where we get from there. One guy's got his name on the stadium. So I think Nealon's going to be on the list, right?
I think Bob Nealon's going to be on the list.
We'll debate
and see,
placement.
Notice I called him Bob.
Yeah.
All right, so that leaves us then.
Same name.
That leaves us then, I think, in terms of other football coaches. And Bowden Wyatt was a good coach, and Bill Battle had his years. And Josh Heupel's done a good job. But again, that's too early for me. But Johnny Majors, Phillip Fulmer. Majors rebuilt it. Mm-hmm. Fulmer took it to a national championship level when he inherited a really good program. I would go Majors because he rebuilt it. Whether he's in the top 6, I will debate that in a minute. But let's figure out Majors Fulmer. I would go Majors, though Fulmer took it to a little bit bigger height with a national title. Hard to ignore that. But I just think if Majors doesn't do the heavy lifting, and I also give Majors credit, he did the heavy lifting at Iowa State. He did the heavy lifting at Pittsburgh. It wasn't a fluke he did it at Tennessee. Mm-hmm. So I give him credit for building it up, and then Fulmer took over a program that had won a couple of SEC titles just in the 3 years before him. So I go Majors. What do you guys do if you had to pick between Fulmer and Majors, John? I'll make you go next.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth, and I think in a previous show that I had Majors ahead of Fulmer. In this list, I've got Fulmer ahead of Majors, and that's just simply for the ultimate prize, winning the national championship. And again, he's not at Tennessee if not for Johnny Majors. And so he was here in place to take the reins as he did. But
he took them.
Yes, he did. So, and again, I
snatched them away. Yep.
And I realize, and there are great arguments. The reason I have Coach Fulmer again is that the crystal football, as well as it's with him in place that you get Peyton Manning, who has been the ambassador not only for Tennessee football, but seemingly all Tennessee athletics ever since. So I just think that there are things that continue to reach out and represent University of Tennessee and Tennessee football from Coach Fulmer's tenure, a little bit more so than Coach Majors. But again, I could wake up tomorrow and think, no, it's Johnny for sure because I did it previously.
Well, I'll say this and we'll kick it to Bob here. I will say this for Phillip Fulmer, and it's in his court. Now it's almost like it's forgotten nationally, but having that other national championship. If your last national championship was 1951. Would you be considered the same level that you are now? I mean, I know that you were so down for so long that there are a lot of people nationally who may not, it's a whole generation don't know you won one in 98. But for people who are 30 and up, it gives you a little different look on the program. So literally you could make the case, he changed it. He changed the game. It was a game-changing move to get that national title, and Tennessee has benefited from that from then on. You could make that case. I still got Majors over him. What do you do?
Well, you said it a minute ago when you said Majors Fulmer, because unfortunately I have them tied that closely to each other. I mean, I think you don't have Phil Fulmer if you don't have Johnny Majors. Johnny Majors brought you back up off the deck, but you didn't reach the pinnacle. I have a hard time separating Fulmer started here and got to here, and Major started here and got to here. So which one of those is the greater accomplishment? And if push comes to shove and I have to pick one, and John, I'm like you, if we come back over here after lunch, I might change my mind depending on how good lunch is. I would go right now Majors, but it is by a scintilla. And it is because, like Dickey, he had to rebuild something. And back in the 70s, you were always flirting with 500. How many years did you not go to a bowl game? Back when it was tougher to get to bowl games than it is now. But you didn't go to bowl games. I just think Majors bringing it back, would some people nowadays ding him, say, well, it took him 7 years.
Oh, you wouldn't have lasted.
I mean, these days you're not going to have 7
Right.
years to rebuild a program. You're gone after 3, probably, maybe 2. But because he's the guy that got it to the level that Fulmer was able to springboard off of, which sounds like a bigger knock to Fulmer than it is. But you started at a better place. I'm going to go with Majors slightly ahead of Fulmer.
Okay, now what we're going to do. I'm not ranking these. These are not in order, so don't let that influence you. I'm just putting down names that we talked about. We will write down what we'll debate is where they go, and then we'll put 1, 2, 3 before whoever. So this isn't done. I just wanted to give our viewers, if you're trying to keep up at home, who's on the list? That's our list of 6. Now you tell me if I need to take somebody off of there, because we also talked Delmonico. We also talked Fulmer. We also talked Barnes, Pearl. I think we all had Barnes over Pearl, or do we?
I do.
Okay, I do too. So it would be Barnes instead.
No, I had Pearl over Barnes.
Oh, okay. Did you? All right.
Because I think, once
Okay.
again,
Go
I'm
ahead.
looking, maybe I'm looking at it wrong, but I'm thinking, who built the
fine.
foundation to where you are right
Yeah.
now?
Well,
Yeah. Okay.
Rick Barnes just beat Coach Pearl's run of 6 straight NCAA tournament appearances, which had never happened before or since. And so there is the impact there. But I also think that there's the negative, that is he paved his own exit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you had, a lot of off-court stuff that.
Oh,
well,
it was literally
yeah.
every month,
There was
every
something,
week.
There was something every year that was
I
a
mean,
big story.
your greatest win, one of the greatest wins during the Pearl era, was because half your team was suspended.
Yeah, Kansas game. Yeah.
So
All right. So is there anybody we take off here to put Barnes or Delmonico or Fulmer on there? That would, and I know individually, yes, we've already made our cases, but as a collective, is there anybody that we agree? All right.
I would say when all is said and done, it probably should include both Fulmer and Majors. But again, since we're talking about just their impact on the sport and or game changers.
Yeah. Well, let's. So what you're saying is,
But no, in
you
my
want
list, I don't
Vitello off.
What's that?
So here, I'll just let you mark through
And
Tony
that's what-
Vitello's name.
and that's what led to the murder of John Wilkerson.
So when you're watching this in the
Vitello off
future,
the list.
yeah, the downfall of Tony
It's the
Vitello.
red pieces of yarn on the wall.
Started right there. Yeah.
That's right. Was he in Dallas?
Yeah. So are we good with this 6
Well,
or no?
I'm good with the fact that you guys both believe Majors over my inclusion of
Yeah, I'm
Fulmer.
close.
So,
I'm close
so
either way.
anyhow, that means those 6 spots are what my list are.
Okay. So this was your exact list.
Again,
I
with
came
the
in
exception of Fulmer for Majors.
Yeah.
Yes.
I came in without one because I wanted to play with an open mind. But that's fine. All right. So then the next debate is who goes, what's number 6? I mean, Majors had the hardest time getting in there, but that was between football coaches. Do we agree that it's Tony is 6?
Yes,
I
I
think
would.
that's where I would put him.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so Vitello 6, which is awfully good for a baseball coach who is still in the early goings, you would hope, of his career here. So that's
fans
a heck
do
of a
hope.
statement. So he's at 6 already. Does Mears go ahead of any of the football guys?
I do not have him ahead of any of the football guys. And that's, again, just talking about how football is king.
Yeah.
So Mears would be the very best in my book for Tennessee basketball, and that would be number 5.
Yeah, and I would have had Barnes on here, so I would put Mears 5th.
I would put Mears ahead of Major.
Mears ahead of Majors.
Yes, once again, simply because the foundational coach of your basketball program is Ray Mears.
Okay.
Everything comes up. He has a road named after him. I mean that's big. Matter of fact, I'm going to be down there later, so I can tell him, Coach, I hung up for you. But I can see the argument.
Yeah. Well.
But I think major program, your number 2
Okay.
major program, and this is the guy who puts you on the map. So I would put him ahead of Majors, although Majors, and Dickey both are the guys that brought your major program back from the dead.
Did he convince you?
No.
No, me either. Okay, so Mears is 5th.
Let me come at it another way.
All right, so Pierce is fifth.
And
That
Pierce
leaves
is right
us.
to carry.
All right, so I'm going to guess Summit and Neyland are going to be 1-2 on this list, one way or the other. Correct? We agree with that. All right.
Yes.
So that means we got to choose who's 4 and who's 3 between Majors and Dickey. Now, we talked about Dickey. Does the athletic director stuff count into it? No. We haven't mentioned the Majors was until Peyton Manning. He was your favorite all-time player. He was your most decorated. He was your guy. That doesn't count either. So it is strictly Dickey the coach and what he accomplished, Majors the coach and what he accomplished and what he did. Which one changed the program more?
Wow. Once again, when Dickey got here, you were in a bad place. When Majors got here, you were in a bad place. Majors got here and you were in a bad place because possibly Dickey left. So is this where jilting Tennessee to leave to a conference foe, jilting them when you're playing them in a bowl game, is that where that comes in a little bit do you got to hold the guy accountable?
And see, that's fair because that is a coaching move that he made, which was to leave you and compete against you.
Now, he left your program in good enough shape that Bill Battle had a couple of fantastic years, right? And so it declined under Battle.
And I'm not going to begrudge a guy for going to his alma mater either. So I understand what Majors did coming here from Pitt, so I understand that. But
but one left you in the lurch. The other came marching home.
Oh, nice. And then you left him. I think that's...
And then you lurched him.
You lurched him, that's right. One left you to go build something else. One left a national championship team to return home and rebuild you, which he did.
Now, they both won 2 SEC championships.
No, Majors won 3.
Majors won 3. I had it as 2. See, my memory fades. Then it's obviously Johnny Majors.
I would also say Majors won the best game of my lifetime.
That is probably.
At a certain age, some people I'm sure look at the 99 Fiesta Bowl as that's the apex, that's my favorite game all time. Right now, youngsters are saying it's the 22 Alabama game. What happened in 99? But to people a little older, it would be that 86 Miami game in the Sugar Bowl. So I would have that's real close because Dickey, for all the reasons you said, and then I was going to put out there the checkerboard, the tee, and the marching band, all those things matter. But I would put Majors ahead because he came back, he didn't leave.
Yeah. Nope. That would be my delineation point.
All right.
There.
So we are down to the 2 that we haven't talked about, which is good because we've saved this debate for now, and we can talk about their merits and all they did, and why one would be 1 and one would be 2. Now we're not going to rank them yet. I just want to talk about them, but there's our list as is right now, and I can't see it. So it's 6 Vitello, 5 Mears, 4 Dickey, 3 Majors.
Yes.
All right, we're talking biggest the best game-changing, program-changing coaches in Tennessee sports history. Then you've got Pat Summitt and Robert Neyland. Let's just make our cases before we say number 1. If you're looking at them, I want to let's talk about the game plan here, the overall what we're grading this thing on. You got to look also not just what they meant to their program, and both of them. I mean, the word legends. I don't know that you'd use that. You would use it for Majors as the coach and the player. He was a legend, but as just a coach, not a legend. I don't think. Dickey, not a legend. The only 2 I see, maybe Mears for some people, but Summitt and Neyland, those are legends.
Sure.
So that goes into it, but also not just what they meant for their program in terms of building them, but what was their impact nationally, the national perception of the school, also for their sport. And we could get into that because I know that's a lot of people are going to say, well, she made women's college basketball for Pat Summitt. We can debate that, but Neyland, Summitt, is there a reason we can do this now? What's the reason for one being ahead of another? Is there a criteria I left out?
And a lot of people are going to say, well, this is easy. Maybe even one way or the other say it's easy.
Yeah,
I don't think it is.
I don't
easy.
either.
Because, and I'm not going to make a case for one right now. but you're looking at somebody who basically, I don't want to say she didn't invent the sport of women's college basketball, but after her passing, Gino Auriemma said, "We stand on her shoulders."
Yeah.
And there's a lot of truth to that, that everywhere that women's basketball has gone in college, and I think you can even say WNBA over the course of the recent couple of years, a lot of it comes back to Pat Summitt. And so you built this entire universe, or you were one of the people who built this entire universe. So to me, now you're talking about the person who basically built, speaking of Robert Nealon, the University of Tennessee is an athletic department and everything that has come since. So that's where the argument is.
Yes.
And I'm not arguing right now one or the other. I'm just saying, to me, that's what makes it hard.
I think it's very hard.
I've gone back and forth based on exactly what you just highlighted. When you look at the reach and the impact of one, and not just nationally, globally, that's where Pat Summitt is. And all you have to do is see when it's the We Back Pat week, and you get to hear in terms of the reach. I mean, people, not only in other countries, but people in other sports will talk about how Pat Summitt, one way, shape, or form, something, it was either her glare, her stare, her success, you name it, all of that had an impact. But as you mentioned, and correctly so, General Nealon is either the grandfather or godfather of Tennessee athletics for what he did and what he built in a national power. It's just remarkable what Tennessee football was. And I also think that he doesn't get enough credit for other things that he had a hand in. The expansion of the stadium were based on,
It was his
on
plans.
his plans. I mean, and the only other coach I've ever known that had that same impact is Rockne at Notre Dame with the exact same situation. He looked at the stadium as to how it could be expanded, how it could be built up, and it's like, that's the elite of the elite. And in terms of, again, the approach to the game. You've talked about it for years in terms of just how that it was the map to the field and like it was a battlefield, and how here's what you want to do when you're here and there, and just the actual grid of the gridiron.
I've still got that quarterback map. At some point, folks, I have a quarterback map that was given to me by former Vol Pat Shires, who played on the national championship team in '51, and it's Nealon's map of what you're supposed to do every 10 yards on the field. It is the funniest thing you've ever seen in your life. I've already blown this thing up to about 8 feet tall. It will be a future show on this digital network, just to bring current players in and show it to them to see their reaction. But yes, he had a plan for everything. I mean, people forget the maxims that have now been whittled down. There was like 70 of those things to start. Yes, he changed football here. I mean, let's face it, football is your number one sport, right? Mm-hmm. All right. People define themselves. They love baseball. They love women's basketball. They love men's basketball. No knock on any of those. If you offered people, every other sport could suck, but we get a national championship in football, I know what they're doing. We all know what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
They're all taking that national. It's like in Kentucky, same question, they'd say basketball. It's a football school here. If you don't get General Nealon here, now maybe you find somebody else, maybe you don't. You were getting whipped by Vanderbilt. They were the power. If you don't get General Nealon and become this incredible power in the 30s and 40s and then into the 50s, are we even sitting here? Is the University of Tennessee just Purdue? Is it Mississippi State?
No.
And think about how this state defines itself. UT football is a part of that. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he changed the way the state views itself, I think.
Yeah, I think
because
you're
of the way
right.
the interesting thing, another note on these two, they both had their careers cut short. Against her will, Pat Summitt with the dementia diagnosis. Robert Nealon choosing to go into the Army and twice left. Mm-hmm, I mean, imagine if he had been here rolling up victories. Now, a couple of years you didn't have a football team during World War II. I get that. But there were times where he was in the military instead of coaching here. Would he be a bigger national name than he is if he had been here all that time, if he'd run up more wins? That's an interesting deal because, as you made the case, Pat Summitt has an international name. I don't know that Robert Nealon's name this day nationally is. I think people around the country know the stadium, but
when you're talking about great old coaches, I think a lot of people these days start with Bear Bryant. And what all came before Bear Bryant, Newt Rockne, there's another example, has kind of been lost into the mist of time. You know, and John, you kind of made the point I was going to make. If you don't have Neyland, then you may not have Summitt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so building the athletic department, making UT a place where athletics are taken seriously. So you know, I don't want to give away my final vote, but I think I just did. But without one, despite the other being just so huge, without Neyland, do you even have something?
And here's the other thing: women's basketball since Pat has slumped. There's no debate. Now, you're not awful. You've been making the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
You made some Sweet 16s. You had an Elite 8 run. You may get back there. But it's the interest level around town has dropped. It has. It's just dropped. Even when Tennessee's football interest has dropped, it's still 50, 60,000 people of it.
Yeah.
People will say, no, we're there, win, lose, or draw. No, you're not. Sorry. That first year under Josh Heupel, you had some 60,000 in the seats day. And that's perfectly fine. That's like most places. That's nothing wrong with that. Passionate fan base. But even when football drops off, it doesn't drop off like women's basketball does. Again, it goes back to football is just king around here. So that has to be factored in as well. Let me play devil's advocate on one. All right? And just before I get killed, I want to throw this out here.
There's been a lot of death on this show.
There has been a lot of death on the show.
Future and otherwise.
When Pat Summitt got her first coaches show, I believe it was the first coaches show by a woman on television in the U.S., I was the producer of it. When she was like the first women's coach to be doing recruiting tapes. That was the big thing. Barry Rice and the guys at UT would cut them for the football team. She wanted them for the women's basketball, and she came to me and said, "Can you do me a recruiting tape?" Did recruiting tapes for. We, on our own, would have. It's so illegal what we did. We did the first ever, to my knowledge, women's basketball tape back when they did VHS tapes when you'd win something. We went to Joan Cronin and Pat Summitt and said, we would like to do one for the Lady Vols. I just wanted to see if I could do it. So before anybody comes back, you hate the Lady Vols, stick it. That's not the case. I've got one of my prized possessions was after that recruiting trip, or the recruiting tape I made for her, Pat sent me a card. And I've still got it, and it was and Holly Warlick did too. It was a thank you note for your help with the national championship. Yeah, I didn't help with the national championship. I cut a tape. But if you don't think I have respect for Pat Summitt, you don't know me and you don't know what you're talking about. That said, I will now play devil's advocate. The idea that she built the sport single-handedly. Remember, it took her a long time to get to the top, the pinnacle. There was all that talk. She kept getting close, didn't get there. There are people at Old Dominion, people at USC who
Louisiana Tech.
Who would say, what was the school? Immaculata.
Immaculata, exactly.
Who would say, whoa, hold off on that, she built the sport thing. And then UConn, what Gino has done, has surpassed it. It's ridiculous what he did.
Yep.
Does that? It has to be factored in some way. I just think there's a little bit of hyperbole with we look at it, she's in the family, and I think the world of her. But that's something we say about our own. It's like, well, Davy Crockett's toughest man ever walked. Okay, well, talk to somebody in Texas. Sam Houston.
Only 3.
Yes, Sam Houston.
Bar.
So, I mean, is that a Tennessee thing that, well, they wouldn't even have women's basketball? They'd have taken the peach baskets down if not for Pat Summitt. Again, I'm playing devil's advocate.
I'm going to go with no, that I don't think it is hyperbole. And here's the reason. Because from Immaculata, back when the Lady Vols were playing in the, what was the?
AIAW?
Yeah.
Yeah, but what was the gym they played at? Alumni
gym.
Yeah.
Sorry.
From playing.
Alumni Hall. Alumni Hall. There's a free ad for Alumni Hall. Alumni gym.
So from Alumni Gym to get it to where, let's say at the end of her taking it to the peak, I think the reason that it's not hyperbole to say Shep, because she was the one that was there from the beginning with Immaculata. I think they won 2 years in a row, didn't they? All the way through her last championship, whereas those others, they came, they went, they came, they went, they came, they went. So that's the reason I give her more credit. And yeah, people were disappointed when they didn't win, but that overall overarching consistency that you were one of the best 2 or 3 or 4 schools every year for a long time. So that's the reason I put her up there. Any
other points we want to make before we put this thing to a vote?
I just think there are great arguments for both. But I also think that both not only impacted the players that played for them, but also coaches that looked at them in terms of the examples that they set.
Yeah.
And there's another good one. How many coaches in this country are still using Neyland's maxims because their coach used Neyland's maxims because their coach used Neyland's maxims because Neyland used the maxims?
Yeah.
I mean, that's...
Well, and something else.
That's a reality. There are things that he taught to guys who passed it on and passed it on.
And you got to go back decades for it to really be meaningful. But he had a heck of a coaching tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a Coach of the Year award is named for one of his former players.
Yeah.
So,
so that's something else. But yes, I'm ready to vote.
Okay.
Are we using Chads?
No hanging Chads. You're the guest. We'll force you to go first. Pat Summitt or Robert Neyland?
I said it earlier. Because of Neyland, you set Tennessee up as a school where sports mattered, and because sports mattered, the Lady Vols mattered. So I think you got to go, and once again, the guy that set the table, I'm going to go Neyland.
Okay. John Wilkerson?
I had General Neyland number 1 on my list the entire time, and still I leaned to Summitt just because of the international reach. Again, since we're talking about game-changing.
But Neyland had an international reach. I mean, India Bomber Theater, World War II.
I'm talking about within the framework of their sport.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Yeah, but you're right. He gets here as a captain. Then he's a general. I mean, because of his absences, he climbed the ranks in terms of his outstanding accomplishments. So if we are talking impact on our nation, sure.
That's not why you flipped it. You flipped it to put it in my lap. You used up all the glue on purpose.
No, but I still think that the people that actually have not been able, if you think of the influence, that there are athletes now that were inspired by Coach Summitt that never got the chance to see her coach.
Yeah.
And yet, here they are. So I just think that, I mean, it is 1 and 1A to me.
Yeah, it's tough. That's a tough one. That's what makes these shows fun.
Right.
If it were easy, it wouldn't
be
fun.
But again, and it could be so easy as without General Neyland, there isn't Tennessee for Pat Summitt to become the pioneer that she is.
I just can't believe you weaseled and flip-flopped and left me to be the deciding vote on this.
But if you started with yourself,
but I'm the host, so I'm letting you guys. So I'm being nice, and I get burned by it.
Now he's just saying, "Grab your keys. It's time for you to go."
Yeah. So I was prepared for you both to say Neyland, and I was going to give Summitt the vote because I could. It's tough in that, look, it's a football school. I think I made the argument. It's a football school. And I think that's where I'm going to go with Neyland. But it's tough because I never knew General Neyland. I knew Pat Summitt, and I liked Pat Summitt. And Pat Summitt was always spectacular to me. And you hear how many people, although you talk to those guys, I mean, Pat Shires, who gave me that map, Colonel Gene Moeller, Gordon Pawlowski, those guys, Andy Kozar. We've got the General Neyland book back here. Bill, I don't know if you can get a shot back there behind John's head. We got that big black book. Underneath that red New Jersey General's Bobby Scott autographed hat, we've got a big black book, the Legend of Robert Neyland. That's not the name of it, but Andy Kozar, who was just a tremendous ambassador for UT for years. The way he spoke about his coach, General Neyland. Jim Haslam recently did an interview with Jimmy Hyams on Paige Dower's Full Disclosure Production. Go find that here on YouTube. The way those people talked about Neyland is the way that the Summit people talked about Pat. They both made impacts on lives. I will go Neyland, but it is ridiculously close. It is solely because this is a football school, and it's a football school because of Neyland.
And as I said, both were at one point number one on my list, so I have no counter argument.
All right, so there's the biggest game-changing coaches in Tennessee athletics history. Tony Vitello, that's a heck of a thing to already be on number 6 on the names that didn't make the list.
Yeah.
See, I would. Well, anyway, we've adjudicated it. Number 5, Ray Mears. Number 4, Doug Dickey. Number 3, Johnny Majors. Number 2, Pat Summitt. Number 1, Robert Neyland. And it's got to be a hell of a list if Pat Summitt's number 2 on it.
For sure.
You've done your work if you're number 1 over Pat Summitt on that list. So, anyway.
And how many of those people have roads?
That's right. Everybody's got roads. Bob Hodge, thanks for coming in.
Glad to be here. It was fun.
John, John, is always fun having time to kick around with you. Thank you for being here.
Appreciate it.
We'll come up with some other new idea for next week. And we do this on a weekly basis, or at least that's the goal. Usually weekly. It kind of depends on your travel schedules with the baseball team. But go ahead, click that like button. If you've watched this, just find the thumb, whether you're on your phone, whether you're watching it on television, click around until you see the thumbs up. Click the thumbs up. It helps other people find shows like this, other Tennessee people who may be living in Butte, Montana, or in Hackensack, New Jersey. I always use Butte and Hackensack. But this will lead them to this show. Also, subscribe for us. We'd appreciate it. Right here on the Sports Source Digital Network, brought to you by Hearthside Bank. Thank you.